Welcome to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, Deborah Kosnett. I'm so happy you're here to share how you're shattering age-related expectations. How are you doing?
I am just great. Thank you for having me.
Folks, I got to share Deborah's background with you because Deborah doesn't believe in what we call the typical retirement. After a successful corporate career as a CPA and a nationally recognized tax expert, she returned to her first love, painting. Now a voice actor specializing in audiobooks, commercials, and museum narration, Deborah records from her home studio in Tampa Bay. She's also a background actor in films and indie projects, and I'm so thrilled to share her journey in this exciting stage of life and how she's thriving after 65. Deborah, please share with folks your age and where you hail from.
Well, I am 72 years old, and I originally grew up in the Kanawha Valley, Charleston, West Virginia. I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. area for 40 years, my husband and I. And then we had this home in the Tampa Bay area. I actually live in a little town on the coast called Dunedin. We were snowbirds for a few years, and then in 2020 it became full time, a little prematurely because of COVID, but here we are.
After 30 plus years in the corporate world as a CPA, what inspired you to take the leap into such a creative and expressive field like voice acting? Yes, you'd had a earlier in your career, you were in radio and you had your theater background, but there must have been a moment that sparked this shift for you.
Actually, there was. Now, I've always liked to be creative. I did portraits and I was an artist when I was younger. My hands won't let me do that now, but I like to manipulate photography. I've collected vintage costume jewelry for many years, sold it, and I create assembled jewelry. At least I did up until a couple of years ago. And so there's always been an artistic side to me. So here I was, retired in August of 2020, right in the middle of COVID, playing around with my jewelry a lot. So it turns out that my mother-in-law died, and I had to go up to the Maryland area to get her ashes. While I was there, I had lunch with an old friend, also a theater major, CPA. She actually operates a broadcast called Sci-Fi Sisters, basically African-themed science fiction and future sorts of speculative fiction. So we were talking, and we actually closed this Chinese restaurant down. We were talking so much. And I said, I've been listening to audiobooks a lot. And most of them are wonderful, but I have run into a couple that were just really bad. I bet I could do better. And she says, "Well, you should." And I thought, "Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I bet I could." So, what to do? I had to find a coach. So, I looked around the web and I found a voice coach. In the age of post-COVID and everybody working from home, you can get a coach from anywhere. So, I engaged Rachel Alina from Denver, Colorado. She's a really, really wonderful teacher. I told her I was interested in audiobooks, and she said, "That's great, but don't discount all the other things that are out there. There's commercials, there's audio drama, there are just so many. There's medical narration, there's explainer videos for corporations. You name it, it's out there." And so I studied with her for a while and got a demo, and then I just started putting myself out there. In terms of audiobooks, that's mostly what I've done now. In terms of being on the first rung of doing an audiobook, Audible has an exchange called ACX. And ACX is a platform where authors can come and say, "I'd like someone to narrate my audiobook," and you audition for it. And then you can do that. And, if you're hired, you can do the audiobook. Now, you don't get paid a lot. You might get paid per finished hour. And I can explain that later if you like.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, it's a royalty share. So if their book doesn't sell, their audiobook doesn't sell, you don't get a lot of money. But when you're first starting out, it's the practice.
Right.
So I have done audiobooks. I think I've recorded about 12 and I'm working on 2 more. And
And Deborah, you're called an alto voice. What does that mean?
It means that I have a lower voice. So when I sang in college, I was an alto. In fact, I was a second alto, and I joke that I'm now pretty much a female bass because my voice has dropped even lower. But I do have a lower textured voice, and I can talk way down here, and I'm a terrible soprano. I can't sing soprano, I can barely talk up there. So that is basically who I am. I am an alto voice that's naturally warm, and I'm suitable for certain types of projects. So and maybe not for others, not for the 20s high-pitched things, but there are a lot of other things, especially if they need warmth or gravitas, that I'm able to do.
I was just thinking about animation too. The films,
Mhm,
animated films, they are
mhm,
always are using, of course, famous actors, but the smaller animated films, I imagine, require an alto voice, a lower voice like
mhm,
you have.
mhm.
Has age discrimination popped up at all in this category for you?
Not at all, because first of all, I sound younger than I am. I can sound anywhere from mid-30s up into what I call 1 foot in the grave. And in fact, one of the audiobooks that I did, I played a 94-year-old woman who was in a nursing home dying, and she didn't have much of a voice, so I just talked like this, you see,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that's what the way she was.
Sure.
But but there's not really age discrimination, it's what you're suitable for. It's a voice. They're not gonna know how old you are, unless you tell them or unless they ask you. They're listening for a voice. And the trend apparently now for commercials is they're trying to skew to a slightly older age, to a little more mature voice, so we will see what happens in that. I really haven't done much in the way of commercials, audiobooks, museum narration, that sort of thing, and audio dramas. If you wanna be in audio dramas, there are so many podcasts out there that are audio dramas, and that's animation too, and there's video games and role playing,
Mhm.
and so I'm on a couple of small podcasts where, I play characters. The one that I'm in now, I play a demon inhabiting a paranormal researcher.
That is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
cool. I love that.
Well, I'm actually very good at playing villains, and evil people because of the low voice.
Right. And again, what a great way to creatively express yourself at the age of 72. Listeners, I am chatting with Deborah Kosnett, and she is a voice actor on so many levels. As you've heard, audio for books as well as commercials. I love the museum narration idea. How many times, listeners, have you put your headphones on touring a museum and heard someone wonder, wow, who is this person narrating? Are you concerned at all about artificial intelligence taking over audio? Because I know a lot of voices are coming out of our A software.
We are all very concerned about it, and in fact, I belong to the National Association of Voice Actors. They have taken the charge and led the fight on Capitol Hill and elsewhere for human voices, no use of voice for cloning and AI without the actor's permission. The voices are not there yet, I'll be honest with you. Just as an experiment, I took ACX up on its offer to just see what an AI voice for me would sound like. I don't like it at all. I'm much more emotional and inflective, and what I offered them in terms of the readings, I guess, just wasn't enough, or they just don't have the ability. AI can't feel because
They
what this is acting. It's acting. It's just not on the stage or in a movie. It's in a booth, but you are acting. You are feeling the feels. You are assuming the stories. What's the backstory of this character? What is the narrator trying to get at? What does the narrator know? What doesn't the narrator know? So, AI can't do that, at least not
and
yet, and I hope never.
yeah, I do too. And I really loved how Scarlett Johansson jumped on this immediately when someone took her voice
Mhm.
and turned it into something that was not her, nor did it represent who she is in the world. And I think it's so important for artists of all categories to make sure they own their art and that AI isn't duplicating it. Now, I love ChatGPT. It's like my new best friend, but it's
Right.
usually I've trained it to understand my Andy-licious vibe, right? So when I have something I want to say and I don't want to take the time to quickly to describe it in the way that I normally would, I'll just say, hey, this is what I'm trying to say. And then ChatGPT knows my prompts and knows me. And then I take it and I edit it. But as a solopreneur, that's saving me a lot of time and
Of
money.
course it is, and it saves me a lot of time in direct marketing research.
Mm.
It's a really big help. I have a demo in, political ads, and so doing the research for places to market to right before the election, that was basically my best friend as well. And
Right.
I'm a techie anyway. I mean, show me a new program. Oh, there are so many now. It's like I just can't get enough really of AI art and, producing things that I can use in my business. And I'm not taking any artist, offline because I am an artist, but
Mhm.
I'm using this because I want to. AI is here. It's going to it's here whether we want it or not. It's up to us to try to channel it for good
That's
and
right.
for it to be useful to us rather than to work against us. So,
And
and that's
again,
pretty much at that.
this is why I love Don't Be Caged by Your Age, listeners, because Deborah's 72. She's nailing it on every single front. She's not caged by her age. She's not letting ageism be a barrier. And ageism really is society's perceptions and how we're supposed to look and be aging. Was the training hard? I know you trained with the woman, Rachel, was it in Denver?
And I've had many, many coaches since, yeah,
Since
because you're always learning in this business, and that's why I like it. There is a style for each type of voice acting. Now, one thing that kind of held me back a little bit is that old announcery voice that I used back in the 70s, because we don't use that now. And there's kind of an excess musicality to it. And at one point, I remember Rachel said, if I could just beat one thing out of you, it would be that. And I've gone to seminars. I've had many, many Zoom sessions with different coaches and different programs. Right now on Monday evenings, it's 10 p.m. for me because it's West Coasters. I am part of a small group with a wonderful, wonderful coach, Barbara Niles, who used to be basically worked in the booth and would coach people. She was a booth editor. And so she is really good at telling me, hey, you're not doing that right. Come on, do this, do that. But there's like usually 4 to 6 of us, and we all criticize each other in a funny way. In fact, I think we laugh and talk sometimes as much as we do work. But you have to stay current in this business because the trends change. So the flat millennial read that you've been hearing a lot, where you just don't hear a lot of inflection, that tends to be going away, and it may be becoming a little more emotional. So, there are trends, and you're not going to do each part of voice acting well. There's going to be some things you're really good at. Turns out my style of voice is really good for automotive ads. So I have a specialty in automotive dealership ads. And it's maybe not so good for like fashion narration or something, or high fashion. So you try to go with your strengths,
it's so
and you try to see what,
fascinating.
yeah.
And I was listening to the Grammys the other night, catching it on replay, and I always think about the person who's announcing that
Yes.
category's nominees and listening to that person's voice and going, "Wow, I wonder why they chose her." Um,
Right, exactly. That's
you know
called voice of God, by the way.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. What a
I mean, it's
category.
it's promo it's promo and voice and announcer, but it's also often called the voice of God.
One of the things in voice that's kind of been annoying for me, I'm sure it's a generational thing, but there's that it's like a striation in their voice where they're talking at the back of the throat, and I found it very popular in the millennial generation, and I felt it
Right,
was like
and
a
that was
learned
vocal
voice.
fry. Vocal
Vocal
fry, and
fry.
yes, and I mean, I can do it, but, I don't really want to. But,
No,
yeah,
but
that has been a part of reads, for several years now. We'll have to see if it tends to trend out.
oh,
I
I hope it
swear.
does. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me, hearing
Yeah, there are
vocal
some ads I
fry.
just can't listen to but somebody else likes them, and that's fine.
And as someone who listens to audiobooks all the time, myself, I tend to like the mysteries, the murder mysteries, the legal
Mhm.
mysteries, Reacher, all the things, right?
Mhm.
And I will not listen to an audio. It's like maybe one of the earlier Bosch books, like from Michael Connelly. I couldn't listen to a few of them because the actor was just so bad, the voice actor.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'm with you. I'm very fussy. And I will, if I find one that I love, oh my gosh, I'll see where else they're providing
Right.
voice acting because that's how much I love their voice. This is so fascinating. And listeners, on episode 46, we heard from Karen William, who is in her 60s taking up comedic acting. She's becoming a comedian and she's doing all the training too. And being willing to learn like you have, Deborah, this is so important. So don't rule anything out as you're pursuing new dreams and opportunities, listeners, because there's training, there's coaching, you're going to be building, you're going to get better and better. And as Deborah was sharing, you're going to start off with a few low budget ways of building your voice, and then you're going to get your repertoire. Do you have an agent, Deborah?
Actually, Rachel is my agent, but only for the state of Colorado. Mostly, I'm working on getting a little bit better before I really approach large regional and national agencies. There are things out there called pay to plays. Voice 123 is one, voices.com another. There are several others where you can, for an annual membership fee, you can have access to auditions, and I have done that. I also belong to Backstage, and that's where you can get more than just voice acting roles. That's where I have found basically being extras in a film. So last August, actually last July, I was contacted by a local couple who were producing a feature film called Killer Grannies. It's in post production, and who knows where we will see it. Maybe it will be on Netflix. We don't know yet. But I ended up as one of the jurors. So that was pretty cool just for the sitting and listening to the granny who was dragged in literally in handcuffs
Oh,
and
listen, I
things
just am
like that. It
laughing.
was amazing.
I am howling over the name without watching the video. You can see killer grannies. I just love
Yeah, it was about a couple of women who would befriend homeless men and kill them for whatever money it was that they had. And it's based on a true story, but it was interesting enough. And I just last week I was an extra in a film that I think is just right now called Derby Romance. It's a Kentucky Derby romance film for Hallmark, and it was shot at Tampa Bay Downs because you can't shoot anything right now at the Kentucky Derby. It's a little cold and snowy. So I got to be one of the women all dressed up with a hat and things like that. So
oh,
that was kind of cool. You might
Deborah,
see
you're
me for 5
inspiring
seconds if
me.
I'm lucky.
In Boston, we have a lot of films made here because Hello, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Marky Wahlberg, they always love coming to their hometown here. So I'm inspired. Listeners, are you inspired as well? Thinking, oh, else, I might be adding some of this to my repertoire as well. What has been the most surprising thing from this career shift that you've made that just delighted you and lit your heart?
I think I'm happiest when I'm playing a part. I mean, commercials are all fine. I did a nonfiction book or two. I wasn't really happy about that. I think I'm happiest when actually playing a character. And I think what surprised me and it keeps surprising me as I go on is that there seem to be endless ways of finding work. You know, I couldn't have done this 20 years ago or maybe even 10 years ago because of COVID. We went virtual. It is very common now for most of us to have studios in our homes. Now, casting agents and casting directors in the big cities don't have to be confined to those cities. They can just look far and wide for
Was
all
it
of this.
expensive? Was it expensive to build out a studio in your home, Deborah?
Not really. It's part of a closet. I've got waffle foam on the walls, and I have what's behind me. Those are black moving blankets. And I just have this little space that's kind of sound deadened. My microphone's probably the most expensive thing. This is my second microphone, which isn't all that terribly expensive, but it is a very good one. It's an NT1 by Rode. or root, I think they call it. And that and my monitors and my laptop, and I am good to
There you
go
go.
pretty much. And the software.
Yeah. We can learn new things. As you look at this incredible shift that you've made and journey that you've been on, and you're clearly challenging age-related expectations and stereotypes as a voice actor at 72, what message do you have for others who might feel too old to start something new?
I don't think you're ever too old to do anything. Are you capable of doing it? Well, give it a try. There's a saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. So give it a try. I am not the type of person who can just sit around and watch movies all day. Now, I love to read, but even sitting around and reading all day is not, after a day or two, I'm like, oh, gee, what else can I do? But this is learning. I like to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I grew up without a lot of money, but my parents valued reading. They had a lot of books. They valued education. We had a set of encyclopedias in the house, and I used them all the way through high school, back when we didn't have Google, of course. And my mind needs to have something to do, something to learn. And the day that comes that I permanently lose interest in the world, then I think I'm probably not long for it, because
Right.
this is part of my makeup. It really is.
It's part of 70% of retirees' makeup. This is the mythology out there, Deborah, that when you're retired, you're okay sitting around on the couch. No, this is what's caused the World Health Organization to say we have a crisis on our hands,
Mhm.
retirement. And someone posted a beautiful photo from a beach somewhere, maybe Costa Rica, maybe Mexico, and they're like, oh, the retirement life. And I said to myself, that would work for me for about 5, maybe 7 days, be bored out of my mind, and many people would be. It's one thing where you can take a nice vacation to that tropical view, but most of us need a reason and purpose to get out of bed in the morning and tap in to being fully expressed with who we are. I am so thrilled that you joined me for this delicious conversation, Deborah. I've learned so much about voice acting and from your remarkable work in the world. How can folks work with you, learn from you, follow you, stay in touch with you?
Well, I have a website, bewitchingvo.com. There you can find all about me. You can find my demos, what I've been up to lately, my latest audiobooks. You can listen to my automotive demo. That's a kick. I really enjoy that sort of thing. I also have, it turns out, 3 Facebook pages. For some reason, I created an audiobook narrator page that wasn't the professional page. So I created the professional page, and I'm still stuck with the other one. So I have those, and then I have Deborah Kosnett voice actor. So you can find me on any of those. I am on Twitter. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, dipping my toe into Blue Sky, but haven't had time to learn about it yet.
Oh, please connect
Oh,
with me on Blue Sky. Andy
definitely,
Lyons.
definitely,
It's so
definitely.
wonderful. I do a lot of pro aging and podcast
Oh,
information there.
lovely. Okay.
And of course, political activism as well.
Yes.
So thank you, Deborah. This has been a fascinating conversation. I am positive that you have inspired many folks to pursue not only a new opportunity they may not have thought of in the creative field, but also maybe thinking about a little voice acting themselves. So I just love, love, love that we had this time with you. And listeners, please remember you have so much more to give. Don't let those internalized ageist beliefs prevent you from pursuing new dreams and opportunities. You are needed in the world. We still want what you have. So keep glowing. And until next time, I'm wishing everyone a delicious day. Cheers from Boston. And thank you, Deborah.
Thank you very much. It was fun.
Listeners, I'm so grateful you carved out time to tune in and grab the gems from this delicious conversation. Be sure to hop on over to Don't Be Caged by Your Age on LinkedIn or Instagram to share your thoughts about ageism and unretirement. Because in this space, your age doesn't define you, it refines you. If you are inspired by a story you hear, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, share, rate, and review the podcast. To receive an alert whenever a new show is posted,
please join the Don't Be Caged by Your Age newsletter. Every month, you'll receive links to the podcast and helpful resources for creating possibilities for your unretirement days. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to hear how you found ways to thrive after 65. Waving from Boston, cheers.